Hey everybody, I'm Doc, and welcome back to another edition of the Boneyard. This is Things That Go Bump in the Night, Part 2. So everybody, what did you think of the first episode? Things That Go Bump in the Night. Skeptics? Believers? You think I'm full of shit? Think I'm just making this stuff up for a desperate ploy for attention? Well folks, from a personal standpoint, it's real. And we're going to get into a little bit of that realism in this episode. We're going to talk about all different aspects of the paranormal. We're going to talk about types of hauntings. We're going to talk about different types of magic, black and white magic, different types of entities, different types of conjuring devices. So, strap in, pull those seatbelts down tight, because it's going to get weird. So, what constitutes a haunting? Are there different types of hauntings? Well, there's a lot of theories in the paranormal community that say yes, there are. There is a residual haunting, which is basically trapped energy. It does the same things whenever it plays. You may see a figure walk through a living room into a dining room. You may see a figure walk down the hallway, but it's always the same figure doing the same thing. It's repetition. It's like it was caught in time. They don't interact. They come and go as they please. They play, they disappear, and they reappear. Now, on the flip side of that token, there are intelligent hauntings. These are the ones that interact with the living. These are the ones that you catch on EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. These are the ones that you can ask questions, and if willing, they will respond. They will do things on request. Notice I didn't say command. They can knock if you ask them to. They can move objects if you ask them to. They do have an intelligent presence about them. Third type we're going to get into are the demonic. These are non-human entities. Now, like I talked about in the first episode, if you believe in good, you got to believe in evil. These are fallen angels, cast out of heaven. There are 5 types of demonic forces, which we are not going to get into. I am not going to invoke the names of the 5 types, because if you acknowledge their presence, if you invoke their names, you invite them in. We are not going to go there. But I will say this about the demonic. There are 3 stages to possession, according to the Catholic rite on exorcism. Infestation is the initial sign. There are signs of increased paranormal activity. Oppression is the second stage. It's a darker stage. Change in attitude, mood. The person's always tired. There's health consequences. They're withdrawn. They're lethargic. They see no hope for the future. Everything about their demeanor changes. And finally, the last stage is possession, where the entity finally takes over. Now, the study demons is called demonology. I would caution you to let that curiosity pass. Because once you invoke the names, you invite the presence. We all remember the movie The Exorcist. That was loosely based on a true story about a young boy in St. Louis, Missouri back in the 50s. As the story goes, a little boy had an aunt who was really into spiritualism and had a curiosity about the paranormal. So what did they do? They played with a spirit board or a Ouija board, asking questions, thinking it was harmless fun. Well, it wasn't. It was an open door. They opened a portal. Once you open a portal, you have no control over what comes through. Since I mentioned Ouija boards or spirit boards, I'm going to also include summoning circles. Not going to get into the specifics of how to perform a summoning circle because I don't want you to try it. I don't want to be responsible for what could happen. Can't have summoning circles without seances. Who hasn't sat with a group of friends late at night in a circle around a table asking questions and fighting something to come in? Well, the problem with that is once they're in, they don't leave. They form an attachment. Here's an interesting side note about the spirit board, or Ouija board as it's commonly known now. During the spiritualist movement back in the early 19th century, a gentleman by the name of Elijah J. Bond of Baltimore, Maryland, originally came up with the idea of a spirit board. It was later copied by Milton Bradley and put into production, and that's how the spirit board or Ouija board came to be. Just a little tidbit of information to tickle the brain there. I'm sorry, I kind of got off on a little tangent here. Getting back to the types of entities. Now, this next segment, or next group of entities that we're going to talk about, are what's referred to as elemental. Now, elementals were never living, and I believe this to come from Native American mythology. Elementals obviously refer to the four basic elements: fire, water, wind, and earth. An example of a fire elemental would be to sustain life, to absorb hate and crime. How about that one? How about the water elemental? It's believed that they influence tides. The wind, it's also believed that they control air currents. And the earthly elementals are causes of natural disasters. Now, there are over 60 different types of elementals, according to popular paranormal research. I can neither confirm nor deny the presence of these said entities, so interpretation is what you make it. The next type of haunting we're going to discuss is called the poltergeist. Who doesn't remember the movie that came out on June 4th, 1982 by the same name, called Poltergeist? What the famous quote is, "They're here." Well, what exactly is a poltergeist? Well, poltergeist or poltergeist comes from a German word meaning noisy ghost. Polter meaning noisy, gist meaning ghost. Now, it's also associated with psychokinesis, which is the ability to move objects with the mind. It's also seen in preteen and teenage hauntings. Now, is there a connection between psychokinesis and paranormal activity? Well, yeah, obviously it's outside the norm of normal activity, which is crossing the lines into ESP or extrasensory perception. But as far as a haunting standpoint, it's believed that if an entity has the power to move an object, it's a poltergeist. And I know what you may be thinking. This guy is still full of shit. Well, let me tell you, folks, as I live and breathe and sit here in my studio / office recording this podcast, I have video on my phone taken 2 nights ago of a necklace that I have on the outside of my office door swinging back and forth, moved by unseen hands. Now, I say that saying this: the door did not move. The motion was a pendulum type motion. It did not decrease in speed. It did not increase in speed. It stayed constant. Now, if something's moved, it's going to gradually decrease in speed till it stops. Well, I took 2 different videos of that same necklace. One while it's swinging, I turned away, turned back, and it had stopped. Dead stop. Little paranormal food for thought. Now, before I get into this next segment, this is a potentially dangerous area. So I'm going to throw in a disclaimer here before we even go any farther. I do not recommend that you satisfy your curiosity into these 2 areas that we're going to briefly go over next. As some of you may or may not know, I'm a history buff. I love history, all kinds of history. Doesn't matter where it comes from. When I was in high school, I came across the Salem witch trials, which took place outside of Salem, Massachusetts, actually, from June 1692 to May 1693. As a result of those supposed witch trials, 19 individuals that were suspected of witchcraft were subsequently executed because witchcraft was a crime in the Puritan faith and Puritan laws back then. So that stimulated a curiosity in the occult. Now again, I'm going to caution you, those out there that may hear this and may think, ooh, magic. I wonder what that's all about. Aside from what you see in the Harry Potter movies, magic is a dark and dangerous slope. It doesn't matter what discipline, and this is just my personal belief and experience, whether it's black magic, witchcraft, Satanism, or white magic, which is often referred to as good magic, like the Wiccans practice. Don't. No matter what the urge is, stay the hell away from it. Because once you open that curiosity, like I did, There's no telling where that path is going to lead you. You can't mention magic without spells, curses, and incantations. Now, I don't know what you believe about spells and curses. I do believe that they are real. I do believe that the dark forces in this world do have the power to influence the living. I've seen evil, folks. I've seen real evil. Not the shit in Hollywood movies. I'm talking about real evil that would make your blood turn cold. So I implore you, please, 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 if you do not hear anything else I say, stay the hell away from it. Be very selective in what you listen to. As far as music. Because the occult has a very powerful pull in some of the darker forms of music. If you feel like you don't fit in, if you're an outsider, and if you don't dress the way others do, that is exactly the type of individual that they are looking for. They recruit. When I was, I guess, about 11, 12 years old, I heard a taped confession of a individual named John Todd, who was into the satanic witchcraft scene. And the things he talked about, folks, the sacrifices, the animal sacrifices, the ritualistic human sacrifices, it scared the shit out of me, folks. It's real. It's around us every day. We just have to know the signs, the warning signs. So again, I implore you, stay away from the dark side. You know, as I mentioned in the last podcast, the first part of this, I want to say pseudo-series, I guess, on the paranormal. You tune into the Travel Channel on any given day, and there's something about the paranormal. Different investigators have different investigative techniques. I'm not going to say, just for the sake of argument, what's good, what's not good, because we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. However, some of the more respected investigators, I would say, use tools that I don't quite agree with. And I'm going to give you a couple examples here. Divination tools, divining rods. For one, I've seen those, and I've farted around with it, played with one set, and yes, they can be easily manipulated to fake results. Now, having said that, I've actually seen them used on an investigation in my own home, as a matter of fact. If used properly, yes, they do react to electromagnetic fields. Yes, to some degree. I'm not exactly 100% sold on that, on the validity of those results, but yes, they have been used to detect water sources underground and that type of things. Another thing I'm going to talk about briefly is tarot cards. To me, that is another form of divination. I don't have a lot of experience with tarot cards, and there's a reason. Because it goes into fortune telling, and it just they just give off a weird vibe. I'm sorry. I've seen investigators on TV use those as part of investigations, and I would highly discourage that. Uh, if you're looking for answers, I think there's other ways to go about finding them, folks, instead of a deck of cards which you can interpret to whatever best suits your needs at that time. So I would kind of shy away from that. One thing I am curious about are crystals. Now, I don't know a lot about crystals. My knowledge is very limited, as a matter of fact. Just what I've been able to pull up on the internet. I do know that crystals are used for different things. I know that they're believed to have harnessed different energies, which can be beneficial in certain circumstances. Obsidian, as a matter of fact, is one that is sometimes used to combat spiritual, or not spiritual attachments, paranormal attachments, hitchhikers, so to speak. I do have a curiosity. I don't see those as inherently dangerous. I do believe that you give it the power you want it to have, which is the case with anything. To tell you the truth, anything becomes dangerous if you give too much power. So I am not gonna lie, I am curious about that, and at some point I'll probably look a little deeper into that. Sage, as a matter of fact, I have a bundle of sage in my studio as we speak. My wife is out of town now, but when she gets home, we are going to perform a cleansing in our own home because of the paranormal activity. So I will let you guys know what happens with that. Holy shitballs, Batman, I really got off on a tangent there. I'm sorry, guys. I just get into this stuff and I can't stop. I've got a problem, I admit it. Going back to paranormal entities, I'd like to take a few minutes and talk about the different types that are believed to be out there. And like I said before, the paranormal field is a subjectively objective field. There are things that you experience, that you witnessed, that you may or may not be able to prove, that you describe, and then there are witnesses who may or may not see the same thing. Over the years, I have seen what's called a full body apparition. That's basically a human-sized spirit that's, almost lifelike. Truthfully, they could be transparent in nature, see-through, or they could be solid in appearance, as if they are sitting and standing right next to you. The partial, or not total full body apparitions, but just part of the body, lower half, upper half, head. Shadow figures. Now, I've seen these little bastards in my house many, many times. I've seen them walk up and down the hallways. I've seen them out of my peripheral vision. A lot of times I've seen them looking straight on, where they cross my field of vision. And they're basically a dark-shaped entity. They can be human-sized. They're often associated with negative emotions and energy. I don't necessarily believe that they're demonic in nature. I do believe that sometimes they don't have enough energy to fully appear as a full-bodied apparition. Hence the different colors. Light, gray, white, as opposed to black. And shadow creatures. Now, if you watch any paranormal shows, there's always some little black mass that scurries up the wall or across the floor or a doorway or, across a beam going up into the ceiling. Those types of things. There's no telling what that is, folks. It could be the spirit of a dead animal. It could be a human spirit that just doesn't have the energy to fully manifest. Or it could be something inhuman. Who knows? The only ones who have the answers are the dead. They have all the answers. Those are the experts in the field of paranormal. We're just innocent bystander, folks. We have a quest for knowledge of things that do go bump in the night. We have a quest for knowledge of what happens after we leave this mortal coil, so to speak. But they are the true experts. Nothing irritates me more than seeing someone who is a self-proclaimed paranormal expert. Okay, you are not in spirit form. You don't have all the answers. You either regurgitate stories that someone has witnessed and told you over the years, or your personal observations. But you don't know why and how they happen. You just record the information. So don't consider yourself an expert. You're regurgitating information, and that pisses me off. Well, folks, I would like to thank you again for spending time out of your day listening to me ramble on incessantly about things that I think are important. But not only that, the questions. We all have questions. Don't be afraid to ask. Search for answers. But don't be surprised at what path they may take you down. Don't be surprised about the outcome of the search. Be open-minded. We as human beings are very intelligent. But I do believe, and I have seen, that there are powers in this world greater than our own. So for now, I'm going to sign off. Thanks again for your love and support. Thanks again for taking time to listen to my podcast. If you have comments, suggestions, disagreements, whatever, please feel free to contact me at theboneyard2021 at yahoo.com. That's theboneyard2021 at yahoo.com. And a little side reminder that this is a production of Whiskey 901 Productions. Until next time, folks.